Hey guys, let's do a mid-month check-in. I know I'm a few days late, but I've read 10 books so far. I'm reading 2 or 3 right now. Let's talk about where I'm at the middle of the month. I am still coming down from my earlier in the year, end of last year personal problems. So I'm not reading on the level that I usually do, but it's getting better, a little bit better every week. I've read 10 books so far in February, and I'm currently reading 3. Ignore my washing machine, it picks now to act a whole fool. Well, that was annoying. Back to our originally scheduled program. So the first book I read this month was Bitter Medicine by V. Castro. This is a 19-page, very short story about her travels to Latin America, where she tried to heal some heartbreak and some things in her life through plant medicine and psychedelics. And it was very, very interesting, very, very quick read. I found it to be very entertaining and knowledge-filled, so definitely check that out. After that, I did a tandem read of the Tupac Shakur, The Authorized Biography by Stacey Robinson, and I really enjoyed this. I did lean a little heavier on the audiobook so I could read while I did chores and things like that. For the most part, I followed along. I really enjoyed the portions of this novel where there was letters, handwritten poems, photos, things of that, and I did learn a whole lot I didn't know about one of my favorite rappers from when I was younger. I was born in the 80s, but you're born in the 80s, you're a kid, you're a baby. I grew up and had most of my formidable years in the late 80s and 90s. So this was super relatable, super interesting, and I learned a whole lot about him, and I highly, highly recommend this memoir. It was a good time. Up next, I read Little Rot by Akwaeke Emezi, and I had a good time. But it feels weird to say that because the book was dark, dark, dark. And when I say check your triggers, I'm not kidding. I read this as a tandem read, as a book I bought on my Kindle, as well as the audiobook, which I got through the Penguin Random House Audiobook Influencer Club. This was a true tandem read. I only ever read them together, and they matched perfectly. I had a great time, and I really highly recommend anything by this author. They write some really great mental health representation with an all-Black cast. Nigerian based. The author is Nigerian themselves, and there's a lot of mythology and things of that woven into their novels, and it's absolutely wonderful. Highly recommend. Check out some of their stuff. After Little Rot, I did finish House of Chains. These books take me like a month to read because they are very in-depth. As you can see, I'm continuing along my annotation journey. I did a full tandem read. I bought both the book and the audiobook on my own, and I will be continuing with Midnight Tides because Steven Erikson is that man. He's that dude. He's that fantasy bro, and I need to know what happens, obviously. After 2 such dark and twisty fantasy novels, I needed something light, airy, and romantic rather, and I picked up an arc from NetGalley and Harlequin Audio called Frenemies with Benefits by Cynthia Williams. This is a Southern setting inspired friends to lovers kind of situation, high school friends to lovers, and it is a lot of fun. I had a great time with it. It is book 3 in the Peach Cove series written by this author. This is the only one I've read. From what I understand, they're interconnected standalones. I had 0 problems reading this without reading the previous 2, although I do want to go back and read the previous 2 because I enjoyed this one. I listened to it again fully on audiobook. Thank you again to NetGalley and Harlequin Audio, and I really enjoyed this. So we follow Tracy, who is at the ending of a pretty bitter divorce. Her husband is a piece of actual garbage, and she is trying to find herself, both spiritually, emotionally, physically. She's trying to find herself, and she doesn't know if she's ready to date, but sometimes when you're not ready for things is when they show up. So Tracy has to make the call if she wants to move on with her life in a romantic setting, or if she wants to just continue focusing on her bed and breakfast that she started and her self-finding journey. And it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed the audio. The narrator really hit, and I really enjoyed this. So if you're looking for something along those lines, highly recommend. I then read an ARC copy of Cursebound by Sarah Al-Arifi. This is the second book follow-up to Feybound, her new romantasy trilogy. Thank you so much to Penguin Random House Audiobook Influencer Club for the audiobook, and NetGalley and Berkeley for the ebook copy. Sorry, my brain took a little spill into I don't know what I'm doing land. But yeah, I read it as an ARC, and If you remember, Feybound was not a hit for me. Like, it wasn't bad, but I didn't love it. It was average. And after the final strife, the battle drum, and the ending hunger being some of my favorite of all, or the never ending fire with the ending hunger, what's wrong with me, being one of my absolute favorite trilogies in fantasy ever, to have Feybound not hit was completely soul crushing. I just had so many problems with Feybound, and I just was hoping it would get better with Cursebound. I'm here to report that it did, in fact, get better with Cursebound. I enjoyed Cursebound a lot more than I enjoyed Feybound. Was it a complete 5-star for me? No, it can't be a 5-star for me because I didn't care for the first book that much. But it did improve. It did improve, and it made me excited to finish the series. I really enjoyed the installment of Cursebound that came out. A lot of my issues with world building, character development, things of that nature did get better in the second book. And I definitely am excited to move on to the third book now. So I am happy that I read Cursebound because I'm not going to lie, a bitch was nervous. I was nervous. What if this makes it worse? And it didn't. So, yay. After that, I wrapped up a buddy read that I've been doing with my friend Liv. I will tag her. This is Just a Fika by Bex Erickson, and it is a Swedish-inspired paranormal rom-com, lakeside setting, ghosts helping with your love life, interfering with your love life. There's a love triangle. There's a hurricane setting. I have to say, this was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. Will it be memorable forever for me? No. As a matter of fact, I think I've already forgotten some of the finer points. I know the main plot. I know the main happenings, but it was not a knock out of the park, I'll remember this for the rest of my life type of book. This was a cool and cozy romance at the time kind of book, and then move on. And sometimes that's just what you need. That's not a criticism. That's not a negative point of this book. I had a good time when I was reading it, and that's what matters. And I do recommend it. It's just nothing that was solidified in my brain for the rest of my life or changed my life in any way. It was a good, solid rom-com read. I enjoyed the Swedish culture that was surrounded it with the fika and all that. I enjoyed all of the family togetherness. The love triangle was even pretty interesting, and I recommend it. Yeah, absolutely. If you're sensing a theme here, there's a reason for it. I am trying to get caught up on a lot of my NetGalley arcs. My goal by the end of next month is to have 0. So I read yet another NetGalley arc. Thank you so much to Fat Babe Publishing and NetGalley for the audiobook copy of Whirlwind by Kayla Grossi, I'm not sure, but it's one of those, I'm sure. And I really enjoyed this. I really had a good time. Again, 90s baby. I love the movie Twister with Helen Hunt and Bill Paxton. Love it. Refuse to watch the new one because it cannot be better. And this hit so close to Twister, but yet was different enough to be its own storm. And I loved that. We have a body positive fat FMC who is in STEM. We have a adult age gap, 25 and 41. We have Tornado Daddy. We have professor and student, but not in an icky way. We have like a really cool and honestly show-stealing bisexual bestie. We have really great stuff in this novel. I loved it. And the audiobook is dual narration and has sound effects. Yes, we love a cinematic experience in our audiobooks. So absolutely recommend. I then went in with another memoir because I am trying to read 25 memoirs in 2025. And I read the memoir of Kenan Thompson. You may know him as Russ from D2 and D3, The Mighty Ducks. You may know him as Kenan from Kenan and Kel. You may know him as a lovable Frenchman who sits in a tub with a rubber ducky and teaches you fake French words from all that. And you're right, he is that lovable guy. He was a crush of mine when I was a kid. I enjoyed his audiobook. Absolutely. I read it through Libby, and when I tell you I need a copy of this book because it was so funny and so relatable in so many ways, and I loved hearing about his life and his kids and his marriage and everything. I really enjoyed this. And super quickly, because I will do a full review on this book, I read a mafia romance called His Tesoro by Emily Rossi. It has EDS, and the main female character is disabled like me. So I read that, and it was interesting, and I have thoughts on it, both good and bad. So stay tuned for that review.